increasing resilience, inspiring, and raising aspirations in teens. They ran an event in November and inspired 400 boys celebrating International Men's Day, and will also hold an International Women's Day event in March 2023. I was part of the event in March 2022, and it was a fantastic one. So if anyone wants to find out more about Rocking Your Teens, please go to www.rockingyourteens.com. And I think Tanya is going to be adding the website in the chat. So I am stepping in for Jenny today. So for those of you who have attended these webinars before, you must have seen me at the other side of the table. So today I get the honor of stepping in for Jenny as she is hosting a face-to-face event for LinkedIn. My name is Hira Ali, and I am a leadership development specialist and executive career coach. I'm also an author of 2 books, Her Way to the Top and Her Allies, and I am very passionate about supporting women and particularly ethnic minorities in smashing the glass ceiling. So recent reports such as the Run Me Trust Broken Ladders report highlight how the odds can be stacked against you when you are not in the majority group or when you're not in the privileged group in your organization, and particularly when the majority groups holds all of the senior positions and the senior roles. Perhaps you have experienced microaggressions, felt hypervisible and invisible at the same time. Maybe you are in the grip of feeling like an imposter. Perhaps you've been consistently overlooked for promotion. So in my own line of work, I talk a lot about internal barriers, and I do a lot of surveys. And in those surveys, we have seen that particularly people from racially diverse backgrounds, people from the global majority, as Jenny likes to call them, often suffer a lot of internal barriers such as culturative stress, minority stress, imposter syndrome, perfectionism, and all of that. But of course, I am not here to talk today because we have excellent speakers who will be joining us today. We are going to be talking about, some of the strategies that have worked for our clients to navigate organizational life and build a successful career. But in this particular session, we are focused on those from, as I mentioned, racially diverse, ethnically diverse backgrounds who experience being a minority in the workplace. During this session, experienced coaches like Lisa, Marie, Sadia, Suki, all listed in the Diverse Coaching Directory, the first and only directory in the UK that connects corporate organizations with coaches from ethnically diverse backgrounds, will discuss how to excel in an organization when you are in a minority. So you can find out more about our coaches and the Diverse Executive Coaching Directory, which I'm also hugely honored to be part of, at babeexecutivecoachdirectory.co.uk. The format for this session is that I will first be asking all our wonderful speakers to briefly introduce themselves. Then I will ask them some questions. And lastly, I will open it up for you to ask questions and share reflections. And my colleague Tanya today will keep an eye for the chat throughout. So you can ask a question anonymously by sending it to me directly rather than to everyone else if that's what you prefer. The hashtag for this event is #ExcelAtWork. And you please feel free to tag us. The speakers, their Twitter handles are advancing you. Phil Coaching, Marie Looney, and Jennifer Garrett, BAME Exec. I think all of these will be shared with you in the chat. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing the names correctly. I'm sorry. So please do share them in the chat, Tanya, so that they can tweet about the event. So let's start with a quick poll to see who is in the room and make sure that this is impactful for you. So Tanya, if you could kindly launch the poll, that would be great. So are you here to gain tips as someone who has an ethnically diverse background, or are you here to support those from ethnically diverse background? That's the first question. And the second question is, if you are from ethnically diverse background, do you think that has negatively impacted your career progression? So lots of comments coming in. Sorry, the words coming in, not the comments. So the majority are from ethnically diverse backgrounds, and we have, we're sorry to hear that. Majority feel that it has negatively impacted their career progression. Small percentage feel it hasn't, fair enough. And sometimes, and some of you say that it has maybe affected it. Right. So I think have 63. Shall we share the results? Tanya, or would you be sharing the results? Can share the results. I'm not sure if everybody can see the results. Can you see the results? Right. Yes. So majority of you are from diverse backgrounds, and majority of you have been impacted negatively in your career. Right. So I'm going to stop sharing and let's get on with this, because we have lots of amazing stuff to cover, which we don't want to miss. Right. So let's start with our wonderful participants. Lisa, can I start with you, please?
Yes, that's fine. Hello, I'm pleased to be with you today. I'm Lisa and I'm an executive career and leadership coach. I'm a host, speaker, consultant and trainer. And my clients are those really from an executive and senior positions, but also those transition into leadership roles. They're from all sorts of sectors, from business, banking, STEM, education, charity, armed forces, law enforcement, healthcare, and many more. And I'm also the founder of eField Coaching, and the co-founder of Shearer Network, which is a social enterprise I started this year in July that empowers people of colour to flourish in their leadership journey and equip them with the organisation with enhancing diversity, equality and inclusion within their work practices. So that's what me.
Thank you so much, Lisa. It's wonderful. Marie?
Hi everyone, I'm Marie. It's lovely to be with you this afternoon. I actually have an interesting background. I'm a creative. I used to have a fashion label. That was my career, designing and producing a women's wear collection, traveling around the world. And that was absolutely amazing. But it also was an extremely pressurized environment. Even though it was exciting, it was really pressurized. In reality, the demands of the fashion cycle culminated in excessive stress and anxiety, overwork and burnout. So I set up Glow Consultancy London to support organizations and professionals to manage their physical and emotional well-being so that they can actually develop a healthier work-life balance and also a well-being culture, healthier well-being culture. So my experiences in well-being, I'm an executive well-being coach, a consultant and trainer. My specialist areas are coaching employees at all levels across different industries, and also the DEI. DEI is also one of my specialisms, leadership and team development. I'm championing sort of workplace well-being, leadership skills, and I am on the committee for the DEI committee at the British Beauty Council. In addition to that, sorry,
Marie, please go on.
No worries. In addition to that, I have an MSc in coaching and mentoring. I'm accredited by the EMCC. I'm a neuro-linguistic programming practitioner, and I hold a mental health foundation certificate.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Marie. Suki, here we go on to you next.
Thanks, Ira. I'm Suki Collins, and good afternoon, everybody. And my company is Pebbles Coaching. I'm an award-winning business coach and an accredited executive coach and a non-executive director who specializes in leadership development using black box thinking, learning from our mistakes to innovate and to grow and to go from good to great. I also champion equity, diversity, and inclusivity. Thanks, Ira.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And last but by no means least, wonderful Sadia.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Sadia Salam. I'm an executive coach as well, an inclusion facilitator, and a recovering lawyer. And that's where I started my journey. Many years ago, I was a corporate lawyer for over 20 years, both in private practice, in a law firm, but also as head of legal in a company as well. And that's what I bring today. I bring all my experience of my corporate life, plus all my training as a coach and a facilitator. And I now get the pleasure of spending all my time helping senior women of colour and diverse talent really lead in a way that works for them in that sustainable, fulfilling way that they may not have seen around them, but they know they want to lead in a different way. And also helping organisations to create that inclusive culture, to have that behaviour change so that we actually get to retain our amazing diverse talent.
Thank you so much. So, wow, we're really in for a treat. Such fantastic backgrounds. What a wealth of experience all of you bring in. Such an honor to facilitate this session today. So what I'm going to do is we're going to ask these questions one by one. I know participants, you have a lot to share, and we would absolutely love to hear you all day. But we have lost a bit of time, unfortunately. So what we can do is we will just try and keep the answers brief so that people are able to hear your expertise in its full glory. 1 or 2 minutes per question is what we can spend time on. So the first question is, what sort of issues have you heard coming up when you have coached clients who have ethnically diverse backgrounds? So I'll start with Suki first.
Well, most of the ones that I come across seems to be anxiety, whether they're doing the job correctly and not being appreciated, taken for granted. And I think it's that gratitude, saying thank you helps a long way. And also imposter syndrome. Am I good enough to be here? And also when thinking of applying for a promotion, am I good enough to apply? Those are the main issues that I seem to find with most of my clients from ethnic minority.
Thank you, Suki. Thank you for sharing. And if you do, please resonate with these. Write your answers and comments in the chat box. Marie?
Yeah, it can be quite varied, as Suki's also just explained a few of the situations. One of the biggest situations is being isolated, feeling isolated, being the only person of color in the room. So at a certain level, when you've progressed through your organization, you may be looking around the boardroom, or you may be looking around the manager's table, and you can be the only person of color in the room. And there sometimes you can actually feel isolated. With that, other challenges may appear.
Yeah, no, and we all hear that. I'm sure we have been the only one in the room so many times. So thank you for sharing that, Marie. Sadia?
So I often hear how amazing clients have done in their careers. They've worked really, really hard, and they have worked really hard, and they've reached great positions. And yet something's not working for them. They're not feeling fulfilled. They're not feeling happy. They're not seeing the promotions happening in the same way as they see other people having promotions. And they often look internally, what am I doing wrong? What's wrong with me? What do I need to do? And it's often a really great time to just pause if you are thinking that way, and to consider how you got there by overworking, by overanalyzing your career. Is that the way you want to continue for the next phase of your career? Because what I often find is that a lot of my clients have, and I had it, and I still have it, is this invisible rucksack. When you start your career, you have experiences that mean that you have to prove who you are in a meeting. So somebody might know that you're the most senior person in the meeting. They might think you're the most junior person, or they might think you're the person arranging the teas and the coffees. Some people may speak over you. You might experience lots of microaggressions. And all those things go into this invisible rucksack. And the more senior you are, the heavier that rucksack. And knowing how to deal with that rucksack is really important. Otherwise, you get to the top and you're just exhausted, and you're still carrying something around with you that is sucking the energy out of you. And that leads to frustration. It leads to you thinking that actually, I'm just not good enough. I'm not doing a good enough job, when you absolutely are. It's all about new tools to navigate the next stage of your career without that invisible rucksack.
Sure, thank you. And as soon as you mentioned the rucksack, I could actually feel it. So yeah, thank you for that that phrase. And of course, sucking the energy out. I think most of us can relate to that. Lisa.
Yeah, what they've all said here, the common one is the imposter syndrome and being the only one in the room, and not being recognized for the work that they are actually doing. So, and that's at a management level too, no matter what level you get at. It's just not being recognized for the work they do, and having varying workloads compared to their colleagues. And that not being taken in consideration as well. And that's, I guess, where the unconscious bias comes in, that they have to deal with at work, where they have expectations about what their work is and their workload compared to their counterparts. And having to deal with that and navigate that and still do a good job. And it's addressing those sort of things. So that's the thing that we come up with. And we tackle that by that self-appreciation, that self-worth and the self-value, and recognizing who they are and what they bring, but also acknowledging, like Sadia said, about your emotions. what are you feeling? How are you feeling about that? And how can you express that? How is that coming out? And we work on communication and confidence in addressing that so that they can make their intentions clear.
Thank you so much, Lisa. And I think that's such an important point, recognizing emotions. That's the very first step, right? Not dismissing them, acknowledging them, and, you know, sitting with them. That's often very important. Please do tweet about the event. And the next question, which we are going to ask, and I think somebody asked in the chat too, what strategies can you offer for navigating daily microaggressions and bias of the workplace, which I'm sure every one of us experience on a very regular basis? Oh, sorry, I'm supposed to name someone Marie. Can we go with Marie first?
Yeah,
and then...
yeah, sure. So yeah, it's very varied, and it really depends on the intensity of the microaggression. But I'd like to take it from an angle of your mental health and your self-care, because I think that's something that's quite overlooked. I know we started to talk about it, Sadia talked about it, and Lisa just then was talking about emotions. But these emotions build up, and where do they go? So yes, Sadia was talking about the rucksack, but we need to, on a daily basis, have some sort of way of dealing with our mental health and emotions. So that might be some way of releasing that. And whatever, you know, however that works for you, that may be about sort of walking, going for a walk in the park, that may be breathing exercises, that may be just kind of having some self-reflection and actually identifying what's going on with you, and sort of discovering ways to release all that weight of negativity. A positive mindset is really something to develop when you have these sorts of situations, so you can actually process them in a healthier way.
Thank you, Mary. That was really good advice. Suki?
I was going to say microaggressions, I think, come from mainly when you start talking about tasks and to-do list. Always focus on outcome, what you're going to deliver as a project and how you're going to deliver it by when, because somebody asked about the strategies and how to overcome microaggression. I think the microaggression comes from when you start talking about tasks and then somebody tells you, oh, that's not the way I do it. This is the way I do it. So if you start talking about outcome and how you're going to deliver that project by when, then you can, I think, give also an opportunity to showcase your talents as well. And also, I think that gives you a chance to say, this is what I've done and this is how I achieved. So it works both ways, and the organization can see how good you are, and also for you then give you that inner confidence, I've achieved it. So that really works very well for most of my clients.
Thank you so much. We have a lot of questions pouring in. So what we'll do is we'll get through the questions with you first, and then I will direct the questions people are asking towards each one of you. Great. So Lisa?
Yeah, so microaggressions are intricately tied with our biases, and many biases are unconscious. So when you experience it, sometimes we don't even know why we're feeling unpleasant, you know, why we're feeling angry about it, because sometimes it's done, well, most of the time it's done in a positive way, and it's the patronizing thing underneath it, the underlining tone underneath it that is causing the issue. So it's not actually a compliment or, you know, meant in a good way. So I think the first thing that you should do, if you're having to deal with this on a daily basis, on a regular time, it takes your toll on you. Like Marie said, it affects your health. So you do need to have daily affirmations where you actually can create this yourself, or from comments that people have given you, and you can create your own. You can buy books and cards. There's all sorts of things out there that you can do daily affirmations to put back that positivity and that self-belief in you again, but also taking that time out to relax, giving your body time to acknowledge how it's feeling, and whether that is, like Marie said, going for a walk, going to the gym, having a soak, doing a mindfulness technique, or just stopping and reflecting on the day. That's really really important. But my second thing would be to choose to pick your battles. Is it right for you right now? We can't fight every battle. You wouldn't want to fight every battle. So it's about choosing your battle. And sometimes, let someone else pick that battle. We're supposed to have allies out there. Let them take up that mantelpiece, and make sure you have got the headspace and the capacity to deal with it all. Depending on your personal situation, it might not be right for you right now to address that issue, because it could potentially lead to bureaucracy within the organization, a loss of job or a change of job because of the atmosphere and things that you're working in, and you need to be prepared for all of those outcomes. Have you got the support network and everything in place? Can you afford to do this right now? How would it impact your family or you? So it's choosing your battle. Is it right for you right now? And basically taking care of yourself, self-care.
Absolutely. I think that's such good advice. Thank you so much. Sadia?
Yeah, so for me, it's when I'm sitting in those meetings and the microaggression happens and you think, is it me? Did he just say that? Did they just say that? Has anybody else noticed? I've got a 3-step strategy for me. Number one is to quickly, and it's hard when you're in a meeting, but to quickly notice the impact on me. How am I feeling? Am I feeling hurt? Am I feeling judged? Am I feeling embarrassed? And I really call it out in my head as to how I'm feeling. And I do that because if I don't do that, then sitting with those uncomfortable emotions takes over. That's what comes out. You'll speak from that embarrassed person. You'll speak from that hurt person. But when you say, I feel hurt, I feel embarrassed, I feel put upon, it takes that away. It sounds funny, but it does. It takes away that sting and that heat. So that's the first thing I do is what's the impact on me? The second thing I do is exactly as Lisa says, remind myself that I have a choice, and I do have a choice, and I'm kind to myself. I can say something now by just saying, did I hear you just say X? What did you mean by that? Oh, funny, you mentioned that I'm so articulate. What did you mean by that? Sometimes I'll do that. Sometimes I won't, but it's a choice. And that choice is empowering to know that we have the choice to say something or say nothing. And then my final strategy is to remind myself that I'm not alone. Even though I'm the one that's felt the sting of that microaggression and that bias, I'm not alone. I can speak to somebody else. I can go back afterwards and ask somebody else to speak for me, to go back to that person and ask them. I can bring it up in an employee resource group. A lot of companies have those from ethnic minorities employee resource groups, and I could bring it up there to say, has anybody else experienced this type of thing in a meeting? How do you think we should respond to that? What should we do? You're not on your own. And coming back to Lisa's point, I'm an ally. Yes, because I've received a microaggression, I get a choice as to whether I speak or not. As an ally, if you're a proactive ally, you don't get a choice. Silence is not an option. You do have to speak up. You do have to question whether what somebody says was right or not.
Thank you so much, Sadia. Such fantastic tips. And I do agree, as members of racially diverse groups, we do need to have a very strong personal board of directors and, peer allies who can stand up for us, who can interject on our behalf. Because sometimes, we feel uncomfortable to do so. And you don't always have to be angry and confrontational. I know it's very upsetting when you do experience a microaggression and, you have a choice to respond. But I think if it is impacting your brand value, if it's impacting your team, if it's something which is happening on a regular basis, if it's a habitual perpetuator, then you might want to call it out either publicly or privately. And then, of course, going through all the suggestions with our wonderful speakers have mentioned are going to be amazing. So I think these are just some of the tips. But the next question is that for people who have been in a position for a very long time and they feel that they're not progressing, what would be your top suggestions for them? And I will start with you, Sadia.
Thank you. I always think there's a sign here. If you're not progressing or there's something external happening to you in your career that you're not having control over, I think this is an opportunity for you to pause. And it's an opportunity to really stand in your kind of big girl shoes, as I call it, and look at your strengths. What are your strengths? What are you celebrating in your career to date? And really stand in that foundation, because we don't really pause in our careers to stand on those beautiful foundations, but we need to, and this is an opportunity for you to do so, to really own your strengths, to own all your achievements to date and to celebrate it. Nobody's going to give that to you. You need to grab it, and this is the opportunity to do that. And when you've done that, have a look. How hard was that for me to do? Do I need help to do that? Because if you're sitting there going, oh no, I don't want to do that, oh, that's not going to help me. It is, but you're stopping yourself from doing it. So just get some help to do that from a coach, from a mentor, from a best friend. And when you've done that, have a look at whether you feel valued, because that's something you can't control in your organization. And we need to look at whether knowing that we've done so well, if we're not feeling valued, then that's an opportunity to look elsewhere. Because if you don't, and you stay somewhere when you know you're great and you're not valued, the relationship's going to break down. And if we leave it too long, it becomes too toxic. And then self-esteem, self-confidence really goes down, and that's not the best time to look. So the better time is to focus on your strengths first, then look at all the opportunities.
Thank you, Sadia. Lisa?
Yeah, so exactly that. If you're not happy in your role, if you question what are you still there? What is it serving in regards to you still working there? And then ask the whys. You know, why have I chosen to stay here for so long? Why am I unhappy in this role? Why should I still be here? And then do the whats. What is your option to make yourself happy in the role? Is there something that could change, that would change the situation for you to progress within the role and to be happier in the role? And what are you prepared to do? Because there might be something that you need to change or work on or develop to progress within the role. So looking at the whys and the whats, what are my options and what can I do? What am I prepared to do? And not to leave it too long, because obviously you then have to negotiate and talk to your employers about this. If you leave it too long, then you're coming from a different place and it's not as strong in regards to your negotiation techniques than if you address it straight away. And that could be because, you know, at the time, if you had the flexible working, for example, or the hybrid working or the pay rise, or whatever it is that would make you happier within your role, or that promotion step, the training that you needed, then if you negotiated that up front, you're coming from a stronger position than if you go and you say, well, if they offer all this to me, I still won't accept it because the relationship, as Sadia mentioned, has got too toxic. The work environment's no longer a productive one for you. And again, it's just thinking about that and making sure that you don't leave it too long. Within some careers, especially within the army, every 2 to 3 years, they move on, they progress. And it's having the plan. Did you have a plan in the beginning when you set out, or were you just going along with the norm? Having a plan, having a goal, and working out the steps to get there and making sure that it serves you well and it's making you happy. Because if you enjoy what you do, it doesn't feel like work and you will progress because you'll be doing your best because you're passionate about it.
Thank you so much. Great questions, great input. Suki?
I mean, building on from what Sadia and Lisa said, I think it's important to reflect on a regular basis. And I think if you stay long in a place and you're beginning to feel like you're being taken for granted, what I would say is take time out, sit somewhere quietly and imagine what your ideal role would look like, and do a SWOT analysis on yourself, the strengths, the challenges, opportunities and threats for that ideal role. And I think that will start to open up avenues you never even thought about, because you're doing it on yourself and in a quiet place. Sometimes it's not easy, like if you are affected in a way that Sadia and Lisa said, I think mentally, sometimes it's not easy, but you have to force yourself to do it, or do it with someone you trust. And that will then start to open up. And also, if you're in a leadership role as from an ethnic minority, I think it's important for us to shine as well, to show other people how it's done. And don't be frightened to speak up when you have to. I think somebody put in the chat about values. Always remember your values don't change from that, because if you do, you will then become a round peg in a square hole, or the other way around, or whatever, and it doesn't quite work, and then it does start to affect you. So just keep reflecting on a regular basis and make a habit of doing that, because I think that is the only way you're going to develop as a person in your life as well as in your career.
Thank you so much for sharing. Anne-Marie?
Yeah, there's quite a lot of information and ideas that has actually been presented, and I'd just like to add on to that, especially the piece about reflecting and reflecting inward. I think that's a really important thing to do. Thinking about your situation, thinking about your environment, thinking about where you excel best and what you really want. You know, that whole thing Lisa was talking about, what do you really want? Is this a vocation? Do you want to move into another sphere? What does this new career or the existing career, where can you move in the existing situation to move forward or move to the side, whatever that might look like to you? I think also getting out of your comfort zone is really important. So that's to kind of instigate some sort of change. So consider what sort of new actions, new habits you can form, what sort of new approaches and new attitudes that you might be able to have, so that you can see what's going on in terms of your career from a more holistic kind of viewpoint. And I love this whole thing about having a plan, because we don't want a plan to fail, we want a plan to succeed. So if you have a plan, and Lisa was talking about every 3 years in the army that they actually change careers, have a 5-year plan on what your career should look like, and stick to it and take some action and do something about it.
Thank you so much, Marie. And can I add this, that as people from racially diverse backgrounds, we're often very shy to self-advocate for ourselves. And some of you who know me, I am a strong proponent of self-advocacy, because I do believe that sometimes we work very hard and we wait for somebody to come and place that crown or the tiara on our head, which never happens. So we have to go and claim the tiara, and that's important. To claim that tiara, it's important that we're able to, put ourselves forward, we're able to step up, we're able to promote ourselves, build a strong personal board of directors, including sponsors, mentors, peer allies, because they will have your back. And then, of course, it's very, very important to also elicit frequent feedback from your managers, because if you're able to do it every now and then, rather than later leave it till the end of the year, then you're able to, take changes, make changes there and then, and make a plan, and of course follow all the suggestions which everybody else has recommended. So there are a lot of questions coming in. So what I'm going to do is now I'm going to quickly move to these questions. So I think the very first question which we received was, there were 2 people I read about. I'm sorry, I think there was one Felicia and one Suki, who said that they have managers who have been, they have just been isolating them, and they have been very rude, and they have been victims. So what would be your suggestions? And I will just quickly ask one of you to add to this. How would you suggest these people to approach their managers who have been committing microaggressions regularly and victimizing them in the workplace and isolating them?
Lisa? Or shall I go? I mean, one thing I was going to say is it's always important, I think, to make sure your HR, human resources people are on board. Sometimes you might feel they're not on, and it's like what you said. I think if there's a sponsor, approach them and speak to them and ask them how to, because of the company culture, sometimes it's very difficult to say, go and do this and don't do that. I think it's important to understand how to have that conversation in order to resolve it, rather than feeling as a victim. It's like you said, I think have an action plan and make sure you have a sponsor on board who will help you to do that. Because if you don't have that to understand the culture, then it's very difficult. You'll be fighting against something that might be quite bigger than you realize, and that will actually damage you even further, I think, as a person, rather than giving that strength to fight.
Thank you, Suki. That's good, Tim. Anybody wants to add anything to that?
Yeah, just quickly, it is really tough when it's the toughest thing when your line manager is the problem, if you like, and is not supporting you. And this is where it's really important for you not to rely on your line manager to do your promotion. Know the limits of your relationship with your line manager and work within that. So when you're doing a great job, people need to know about it, and you have to be able to navigate how to show that to other people. You also have to navigate that relationship with your line manager, and that means having a really uncomfortable conversation, potentially, but getting support from others in your organization who know how to have those conversations, because they are tricky. It could be HR, it could be just a mentor, it could be a friend, it could be somebody outside of your organization, it could be a coach. You may have all the answers inside you, but you're just in this whirlwind of this relationship with your line manager, so you can't find what to say. Whereas if when we clear all that fog, you might be able to find what to say. But know that you're supported, and get the support to help you with that conversation. That conversation does need to happen, and know that when people leave organizations, they leave because of their line managers. It's not because of the organization.
Thank you, Sadia. I think that's so true. And, avoiding that conversation is not going to help you, because we are very sorry that you're going through this. And, it's not a good experience. It has an impact on your mental health, but you need to find that support, as Suki and Sadia are saying. get your allies by your side, and then prepare yourself for the conversation. I would say document the incidents as much as you can. And rather than saying that, oh, you were racist, you were vindictive, you will always do that, say that this is what happened on Monday, this is what you said, this is how I felt, this is what I want you to do going forward. So a very clear plan as to what you want from your manager. I think that would really help. People have asked quick tips about how to rise and shine as ethnic leaders. And I will put in a plug-in. I have recently written an article for Jenny Garrett Global on how you can excel as a minority colleague. So please do go and subscribe to Jenny Garrett Global and read my article. But any quick tips from all of you on how to thrive and do well and succeed as an ethnic minority colleague?
Yeah, I would say there are a few options that you've actually got in an organization. One of the biggest things is about building relationships and the way you actually do that. So of course you're in a position because you are good at what you do. So get better at what you do, really excel at what you do, because people will see that and they will come to you because you're very good at what you do. The other thing is, if you can find ways of connecting with people, so maybe understand certain strengths that you have and understand what strengths other people in the team or the organization has, and you can actually complement each other and work together. And there you're connecting, and there you're building a rapport and you're building a relationship. So I think that those are some of the key things that I would actually say to someone, Brandon.
Thank you so much, Marie. There's also a question about how to deal with this in-group bias, which also often happens when you are facing that victimization from people from your own community, from your own kind, because they want to be the only one shining. So it's often called the tug-of-war bias, which I recently posted about on LinkedIn as well. So and that's a bit tricky, right? Because these are your own people, you would expect them to support you. So what do you do in that case? Any suggestions?
I think most of the time it comes from having your own insecurity when you actually reflect that towards other people. So if someone is acting like that, I tell you, take them for coffee, away from everybody, just sit and chat with them, be honest, open, have that conversation. It takes a lot of courage to do that, having that conversation with somebody you probably look up to, or if they're from your same ethnic minority as you. But you need to have that conversation because they might be just looking at you in awesome, but they don't know how to react to you. So it could be that that's the way they are reacting because they're feeling insecure themselves. And you need to have that open conversation with them, an honest conversation with them.
And I know we have been, Suki, thank you so much. That's great advice, because open conversations are important. And I know it does feel very burdensome to have these honest conversations, but avoiding them is not going to help us. If it is impacting your mental health, again, like I said, if it's impacting your brand, the way you're perceived by your team members, if it's affecting your team members and the progress of the group in general, then you would need to have that conversation in a very open, honest, non-confrontational manner, but share what you think is important. Somebody said that self-promotion, especially for Black women, doesn't work in our favor. And you know what? Again, I'm going to share this article with Jenny once I've written this. We have negative stereotypes attached to us as people from different community groups. So whether we are Black, whether we are Asian, whether we are Muslim or other minority groups, we have a lot to contend with. And these stereotypes should not define us. I hear you when you say that if you're Black, it doesn't work well. There's also this whole stereotypical assumption about the angry Black women, or it's about the subjugated, subservient Asian women. So there are all these stereotypes attached to our communities, which I believe is our responsibility. And I know I say this because it's tiring, it's exhausting, I hear you, but it is, again, our responsibility to take charge of our brand. And if people are judging us for self-advocating, for self-promoting, then so be it. Because if they have the opportunity and if they have the right to self-promote, so do we. And I think it's important to own our brand, build our brand in a serious way where people start seeing us for who we are and not our stereotypes. There was a question about code switching. And somebody had mentioned that, obviously, as people from racially diverse backgrounds, we code switch a lot, and code switching is supposed to be a good thing because, you are able to move from one society, one sort of ethnic background to another in terms of your language, in terms of how you operate, which can lead to your progression. But according to an article in HBR, code switching can be exhausting, sometimes when it's done excessively so, and when it is compromising on your values. So what is your suggestions for that?
For me,
Yes.
there's a lot of magic in being an ethnic minority in organizations, and our magic comes from our journey. It comes from all our experiences that we've come to date. I know I strongly believe that as an ethnic minority leader, they're brilliant because they're so empathetic, they're so inclusive, they've been through so much that they don't want others to go through. But in order to use all of that, understanding code switching and how we do it and why we do it, so we spot it in others, we get to role model how we see the new type of leadership. What is the new leadership? How do we want the new leaders to look like? What do we want them to look like? How do we want them to act? Do we want them to have an organization where people have to code switch in order to get promoted? Or do we want people to get promoted in a different way? We get to choose that, and from a place where we've seen it all. And so we get to lead in a way, a very different way, that role models to others that they can lead in a different way. It's great to be different. It's great to lead in a different way. There isn't one way to lead, and we can show that. And I think that's our magic. And if I look back at my career, that's what people like from me, is that you were always so human. I like the way that you did things differently. That gave permission to me to do things differently. So let's give permission to everybody by leading in a way and finding out ourselves how we want to lead, not based on others. And there will be organizations that like the way we lead because it works. Absolutely. And that's the organization for us.
That's very good advice, Sadia. Thank you so much. And honestly speaking, we all code switch irrespective of our background to a certain degree. But if we are code switching excessively, like Sadia said, we have a choice, and we need to make sure that the choice is communicated to the organization. I don't know how many of you read this yesterday, but there was a post on LinkedIn trending about how an employee sued his organization because he was not the fun type and he wouldn't go out drinking. So whether you choose to not be the fun time because of your values or whatever it is that you follow, make sure that you have the right to do so, and if the organization is not supporting you, then thankfully we are living in an inclusive culture where you're able to sue the organization. I'm not saying go sue them, but things like that give us hope that we are no longer tolerating all of this. There's another quick question on extra pressure to represent, and I think this is going to be unfortunately the last question because we do have to take the questions from you as well. The extra pressure to represent if you're the only one in the room, and the pressure becomes pronounced if you fail. So how do you deal with that?
Well, again, with the extra pressure, I think it's again something that we take on board. We put that pressure on us because we feel we're noticeable, the only one in the room. And it's about not taking that pressure on. Yes, we might be the only one in the room for now, but as you said, we are the leaders of the future, and we are creating the space, and we're stepping that ladder and helping people to come up as well. So it's, yes, you're the only one in the room for now is the way to look at it. And that although you're the only one in the room, you deserve to be there. It's about knowing yourself and being confident in who you are and doing what you're doing, and doing it well so that others can recognize that and the changes and breaks those stereotypes. The pressure of I have to represent every Black woman in or African Caribbean person because I'm the only one there is something that you feel that you put on because you are there, and it's something that we have to just not take on board. We're not representing everyone, we're representing ourselves and our opinion, and that is why we're there. Our values, what we're doing. We cannot represent every single person. We cannot represent every single person's opinion of our background or whatever background we came from, because we're all different. So don't take that pressure on board, and just be yourself and make space for others coming up and help others to come up.
Thank you so much, Lisa. That's such sound advice because, if I do something wrong, people are not going to say Hira made a mistake because Hira doesn't know anything. And I often say this, if I make a mistake, people will say, oh, Hira made a mistake because all women are like that, all Muslims are like that, all Asians are like that, all immigrants are like that. And that's a lot of pressure to represent so many different groups. I just can't take this on. So, I think we don't need to take that pressure on. I know this is called the stereotypes, right? When you confirm, when you're afraid of conforming to the negative stereotypes attached to different groups. But honestly, it's not your responsibility to represent your entire group because that is exhausting. So just do you. Lots of questions are coming in. I do think we need to do a part 2 of this particular webinar because it's definitely seems like people have a lot of questions. But whatever it is, I would request all of you to have these honest conversations. I read about somebody saying, what do you do if the goalpost is changed or if somebody's toxic? And, these are the things which we will regularly experience in the workplace. And the only way to confront this is to have those conversations with your sponsors, with your mentors. Somebody mentioned about how do I get personal board of directors. So personal board of directors is a board of directors, which I personally call personal board of directors because it's your mentors, your sponsors, your allies, and lots of different people who will have your back. And you have to go and search for them strategically. If there will be lots out there. If you subscribe to Jenny Garrett Global, we do share many, many articles every now and then sharing these strips. But before we go, I really very quickly want to ask these very quick questions. What is the one coaching question which you would like to leave people with? Anybody who wants to excel in their career should ask themselves. So starting with Suki.
I think you just stole my words there, Hira, because I was going to say, how am I going to use my coaching session to help me to excel and not be ordinary? I think it's building on what Lisa said. It's important, I think, to build our confidence because we need to shine when we walk into a room. Don't be intimidated by anybody else. If you plan and you have an action, then you can deliver. So that's going to be my question. How am I going to excel and not be ordinary with my coach?
Wonderful. Thank you. Lisa?
Mine would be, how am I limiting myself and who am I allowing to limit me? Those would be the questions that I'd work on, because then you would see how you can progress, how you can break those barriers, how you can move forward.
Very powerful one. Thank you. Marie?
Yeah, mine would be around my well-being and how to support well-being in these challenging situations, and what sort of self-care do I practice? That's what my questions would be.
I think well-being is so important given how much we experience on a regular basis. Thank you so much. Sadia?
So mine would be, if I was supported unconditionally, if there was no bias, if there was no limiting, if everything I touched turned to gold, what would I want from my career? And what would I do to get it?
Thank you. So very powerful questions. Thank you so much to everybody who's attending today. Huge thanks to Lisa, Marie, Sadia, and Suki, and of course, Jenny, who's not here, but is here in spirit. You can find out more about the Diverse Coaching Directory. It will connect corporate organizations to coaches from diverse backgrounds. Please feel free to connect with us on our Twitter handles, on LinkedIn. All of us are very active on LinkedIn, and we share advice regularly because we are diverse from diverse groups ourselves. So we understand you, we hear you, and often we're not saying we're experts with all the solutions, but yes, we will come up with some suggestions to support you in your journey. So do follow us, do subscribe to Jenny Garrett Global. My colleague Tanya will add the link to this directory in the chat, and we will see you in the new year with an exciting series of events. Register on our Eventbrite page and be the first to hear about them. Until then, we do wish you happy holidays. Free to channels in the chat box, follow us on LinkedIn, reach out to us, and we'll be more than happy to support you and help you excel in your careers. So I'm conscious of the time. I am going to stop now, but thank you so much for attending, and we look forward to seeing you in the new year. Happy holidays. Enjoy yourself. Have a lovely break.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.